Welcome back. It's great to be back again. Today we are in chapter 29. So, before we get into chapter 29, a quick little recap and a little intro to what we're getting to. So, in the last several chapters, really from chapter 26 onward, we began to focus on elements that could cause a person to become in distress, sad, and feeling hopeless, giving up. And we explained that with that mindset, with that attitude, a person can never succeed. You can never win. You can't win a battle when you're not feeling positive, optimistic, encouraged, and so on. So we addressed various different perspectives and ideas on how to be able to tackle all various different forms of thought processes or situations that may cause a person to fall into despair. We talked about what happens if a person feels sad from the fact that they're lacking things in their physical needs. What if a person's feeling sad from a realization of errors that a person has done, in other words, feeling guilty. So we went on to talk about what happens if a person feels ashamed, feels discouraged from their status, their situation. How come I'm not righteous? How come I'm not perfect? What happens when, no matter how hard I'm trying, I keep getting distractions and I keep having challenges that just pop up everywhere, and it's like, I'm just trying, and God, what are you doing to me? Why is it so hard? We talked about that. So we went through all of those ideas, and we really emphasized the importance of always being upbeat, happy, joyful, positive, because it's a fundamentally critical ingredient to be able to succeed in this effort. To be a successful Beinoni, to be a successful in-betweener, you have to be joyful, you have to be positive and optimistic. Chapter 29 is going to take a bit of a curve out of this idea. So, it's a big idea, very different, but as they say, sometimes it's the necessary evil. You need to deal with it. Sometimes we have to face reality for what it is and take difficult steps to be able to bring ourselves to the right place. So it's not necessarily pleasant, it's not necessarily easy, but sometimes what you got to do. But before we get into that, I want to share a little story as a little intro, because I think it will help put us in the right mindset, in the right perspective. So the story is told about a rabbi. His name was Rabbi Shmuel Levitin. He was a great rabbi who originally came from Europe, immigrated to the United States, incredible scholar, brilliant man, and he was a close disciple and chassid of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And one time the Rebbe sent him on a mission to go to Chicago from New York and to go strengthen the Jewish community there. This is in the 1940s. So he makes the trip from New York to Chicago, and while there, he gathers the community together. There were many shuls there. There was a very old Jewish presence in Chicago. So he's there speaking with the people, encouraging Torah, mitzvahs, and so on. And then he requests to have a meeting with a certain individual, a well-known, wealthy philanthropist, Jewish man who lived in Chicago, and he requests to have a meeting with this man. If I'm not mistaken, his name was Mr. Listener. And he wants to meet with him. Now, it wasn't easy to get a meeting, but because of the situation, who he was and who he was representing, they were able to get in the meeting. So he goes to the meeting, not alone, but with some of the other rabbis in town. And one of his name was Rabbi Perlstein. And they go together to visit with this wealthy man. And they sit there, and Rabbi Levitin is speaking with him, and he remembered this Mr. Listener's grandfather from Europe, who was a great chassid, and he was a very pious man, and they're talking about the memories, and this man also remembered his grandparents, but not very well, so he's sharing memories and talking about it. Turns out that this Mr. Listener, even though he came from a very Hasidic family, very observant. As he came to the United States, he became very Americanized, and he drifted a little bit. So Rabbi Levittin is trying to inspire him and remind him of his roots and where he comes from, etc. So anyways, they speak for a while, and the conversation comes to an end, and Rabbi Levittin is getting ready to get up and leave. And Mr. Listener says, hold on one moment. He goes to the other room and comes back with a checkbook, and he says, who should I make the check out to? So Rabbi Levittin says to him, I don't want to offend you or insult you, but I didn't come here for money. I'm not raising money for anything, so I'm not going to accept any money from you. So he says, so then why did you come here? He says, you came all the way from New York to Chicago just to chat with me about my grandparents? What's going on? That doesn't make any sense. So one of the other rabbis that was with him said to him, Mr. Listener, let me explain to you an idea. Surely you know about a Torah scroll. A Torah scroll is written by hand with ink on parchment, very meticulously. A scribe has to write it. And it happens that every once in a while, it's possible, due to maybe weather or other circumstances, letters that are written with the ink can fade or can crack. And therefore, it's important that every so often a scribe has to go around and inspect the Torah scrolls, make sure they're still whole, and wherever he sees a letter that has faded, to refill it in and correct it and fix it so the Torah scroll can remain kosher and then re-bring its integrity as a kosher Torah scroll. So a Jew is like a Torah scroll. A Jew is filled with letters of Torah. Filled with letters. Each letter represents another mitzvah, another connection with God. But it happens sometimes, due to the circumstances, that letters within a Jew can fade or crack or disappear. So a scribe comes, and his role is to look into the Torah scroll and help fill in those letters that faded. So the rabbi came from New York as a scribe, but not a scribe of Torah scrolls, a scribe of Jewish souls. And the previous rabbi commissioned him to go out as a scribe, and he came here to look into your soul, into your scroll, and see what letters need to be filled and corrected and put back in. And that's why he's here, that's why he came. And Mr. Listener was very moved, and he reconnected in a much deeper way with his Jewish roots as a result of that. That was the visit. Now Rabbi Levittin comes back to New York, and he goes to meet with the Rebbe who had sent him on this mission, and he reports to him about all the different events and the conversations that he had throughout his journey. And one of the things that comes up is this conversation. And the comment that this other rabbi said to Mr. Listener about the scribe and the Torah scroll and so on. The Rebbe listened, and he said it's a very interesting analogy. However, I have one remark on it. The analogy is not entirely accurate, because although it's true that a Jew is like a Torah scroll, however, a Torah scroll is written with ink on parchment. A Jewish soul, although it's like a Torah scroll, is not written with ink on parchment. It's engraved, like in letters that are engraved in a stone. And what's the difference between something that's written and something that's carved out, that's engraved? Is that something that's written could indeed, with time or conditions, fade or crack. But something that's engraved can never fade. What could happen is that sometimes dust or dirt can fall into the crevice of the engraving and fill it and cover it. But it's still there. So unlike with the faded letter in the Torah scroll, we have to rewrite the letter. Here, you don't have to rewrite anything. The letter is always there intact. All you have to do is blow the dust away, remove the schmutz, remove the dirt, and expose that which has always been there. That was the Rebbe's comment on that rabbi's comment. Now, and I think this story is really the essence of what chapter 29 is all about. Chapter 29 comes to address the person that after all these 28 chapters in the Tanya, we've come so far, we've learned so much, and we've practiced so many different skills and being able to really live by our godly soul as much as possible. This person says to the Alter Rebbe, it's just not working. I just don't feel it. I've tried it all, and I really followed every single step of what you told me, but you know what? At the end of the day, I just don't feel it. It's not me. It's not who I am. I can keep doing it by routine and keep doing the prayers and doing the mitzvahs and studying, but I don't connect with it. It's just not me. I don't connect with it, and that's it. It's not meant for me. Everybody's got their thing. This is not my thing. Judaism is just not my thing. I'm Jewish. I'll continue to live by it, but I don't connect with it in any deep, meaningful way. It doesn't really resonate with me. So what do I do? So the Alter Rebbe tells him, you have a problem. You have a problem. You need to go to a cardiologist. What's your problem? You have a clogged heart. It's called Timtum Halev. Your heart is clogged up. What does that mean? He says like this. This that you say, that it's not you, it doesn't resonate with yourself, you don't feel like you connect with it, is simply untrue. Because it's not possible that a Jew should be disconnected from Judaism, from Jewish life. It's not possible. At the core, at the DNA of a Jew is connected with God, is connected to Yiddishkeit, to Judaism, to Torah. It's not possible to separate oneself. As we already referenced earlier, even a Jew that feels that way, even this Jew who feels this right now, what he's describing in chapter 29, if he was put to the test, he would still not denounce his Judaism and give up his life for it. But that's not happening right now, so he's just living regular life. He doesn't feel connected, doesn't feel inspired. It's meaningless. It just doesn't do it for me. I don't get excited about it. It doesn't move me whatsoever. So the Alter Rebbe says the reason it doesn't move you is because your heart is clogged. You have a separate problem, not because of who you are at your core, but it's because of something else that's concealing, that's hiding over your reality. So much so that you began to identify yourself not as how you should and how you really are, which is a Jew with a godly soul. You began to identify yourself by your animal soul. That is how far off the beaten path you've gone. You've become so clogged that you identify yourself as the animal soul. That you say, I don't resonate. Who doesn't resonate? Your animal soul is the one that doesn't resonate with it. You are a Jew at the core. You don't have a choice. It's not something that you chose to be. You were born that way. This is who you are, and your genetic, your DNA, you have a godly soul that is one with Hashem. You believe in God. You believe in Torah. You believe in mitzvah. You don't feel it. You don't resonate. It's because your heart is clogged. You got a bunch of schmutz. You got a bunch of dirt that covered up. Imagine you have a golden nugget that gets covered up with dirt. You never see it. You don't know it's there. You have to scrub it, and you have to wash it, and you have to power wash it, and you have to, who knows what. But when you do that, whoa, look what I've got. You had no clue. You had no idea. Exactly like what the previous Rebbe said about that example. He said the letter never fades. That connection with Hashem doesn't go away. It's who you are at your core. The problem is that layers and layers and layers of external elements have been added to cover up your truth, your reality, so much so that you began to believe that your reality is the cover and not the core. And here's a very interesting thing. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say this clearly in the Tanya, but I saw in another ma'amar, another discourse in Chassidus, where the scribes explains this idea, and it says the following. We keep referencing the soul, the godly soul, as being our true identity in our connection with Hashem, as I just finished sharing here right now. What's interesting is that our body, our physical body, I'm not talking about the soul, the physical body is also designed to represent that. Listen to this. This is very interesting. So we know the name of Hashem in the Torah is expressed in many different forms. One of the most essential forms of how Hashem's name is described is in 4 letters, called the 4-letter name. Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. It's so sacred we don't even pronounce it. We never say it as is. When we read that name, we pronounce it differently. We pronounce it as Adonai. We don't say the actual name of Hashem. It's a different thing. Okay. So we have the 4-letter name. The Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. Those 4 letters are expressed in the figure of our physical body. The Yud, which is a small letter, is the head. The Vav, which is a straight line, is basically the center of the body. And then we have 2 Heys, which each is 5. That represents, we have in the hands and in the feet, we have fingers or toes, right? Which is 10. 10 each, but each 10 really is just a double, right? So you have 5 and 5. The Hey, the numerical value of Hey is 5. So you have 1 Hey is the 5 and double, the 10 fingers. And then 1 Hey is the 5 and double, the 10 toes. So the whole image of the physical body is a expression of the 4-letter name of Hashem. Why is that so significant? It sounds beautiful, but who cares? Why is that significant? Because this is making a very strong point. It's not just that by your core, by your godly soul, you're connected with Hashem. Because that's who you are, to your very DNA. But even your physical body is designed to be a vehicle that expresses Hashem's reality. That's the reason why our body is designed and shaped the way it is, because it's supposed to be a expression of Hashem's name. Now, doesn't mean it's automatically going to be so. We can end up using our body differently. We have free choice. We end up choosing to use our body in different expressions. But at the core, the design of our body is modeled to be an expression of Hashem's truth, of Hashem's name. So that shows that it's not just at the soul level I'm one with Hashem, but even on my body's level, I'm really one with Hashem. The fact that I don't feel that, the fact that I don't see it that way, is because there's something else getting in the way of that truth. That's the dirt that's concealing, that's hiding over this reality. And that's what the Alter Rebbe tells his fellow, your heart is clogged. It's clogged. It's like if the heart physically is clogged, you need to bypass it, you need to clear it up. There's something clogging the blood flow. It's not allowing for whatever is there and supposed to be there and supposed to be functioning isn't happening the way it should. On a spiritual dimension, you're having a heart cloggage. You need to go to a cardiologist. You need to get an emergency surgery to clear up this schmutz, to get rid of this cover that's concealing, that's hiding over your truth. So in other words, the person who's coming to the Rebbe is saying, I feel this is not me, it's not for me, so look, I'll still participate, but I'll be very honest, it doesn't do anything for me. I don't get excited about it. It doesn't really make me tick. It doesn't get me moving. It doesn't get me going. Because it's not me. The Rebbe says you're identifying your problem correctly, but you're diagnosing the symptom incorrectly. Yes, it doesn't make you tick. It's not doing anything for you, but not because it's not you, but because you are covered over with a layer of dirt that is concealing over who you are, that you're not even in touch with yourself. You're out of touch with yourself, not just on a soul level, even on a body level. Because even your body is designed to be a reflection of Hashem's truth. Okay? So that's the point. But now what do we do? So say, that's me, that's my situation, what do I do? So here's what the Alter Rebbe says in chapter 29. I'm going to give you some guidance on how to deal with this. But listen carefully, because normally they say don't try this at home, but you have to try it at home because you got to do it. But do it very carefully because it's risky. It's risky, but sometimes you have no choice. So, true that till now we spoke about the importance of always being positive, always being optimistic, always being motivated and excited. And if you have thoughts that you're thinking about guilt or shame or things that you've done wrong, we said make an appointment, schedule a time, don't let that derail you. push it away. Now the Alter Rebbe is telling you the opposite. You know what you got to do? You got to shout at yourself a little bit. You got to look yourself in the mirror and start screaming. Not at somebody else. Not to blame anybody else. It's time to shock the system. Sometimes the only way to wake somebody up is by shocking them. You got to shock the system. The Alter Rebbe references a story in the Torah that happened about a year after the Jewish people left Egypt, and they're preparing to enter the land of Israel. You're familiar with the story that Moshe sent 12 spies to go and scout out the land. 10 out of the 12 come back with a very negative report. It's a bad idea. We're not going to be able to succeed. We're going to be defeated by the inhabitants of the land. We shouldn't go there. Forget about it. And they managed to convince pretty much the entire Jewish community, the Jewish nation, we're not going in. And they started to cry to God, why did you take us out of Egypt to die in the desert? We don't want to go into the land of Israel. It's really bad. And Hashem became very upset. And right away Hashem said to Moshe, I'm going to destroy the whole nation. Moshe begged God, don't do that. So God says, okay, I'm not going to destroy them all at once. I'll do it over 40 years. And this entire generation is not going to the land of Israel. You don't want to go in, you're not going in. That's it. You're not going in. Your children are going to go in. You all are going to die in the desert. Nobody that's over 20 years old is going to go into the land of Israel. They're all going to pass away over 40 years. But by the time anyone reaches 60, nobody's going to outlive 60 years. Once they reach 60, they die. Or before, but they don't get it to 60. And the children, the next generation, they're the ones who are going to enter the land. Now something very interesting happens in the story. This is another detail that maybe many of us are not as familiar with. But you can look in the Torah, you can see the story for yourself. Just after Moshe communicates to the people what God said, that they're not going to the land, suddenly there was like a complete 180-degree change of heart. And the people said to Moshe, we've sinned, we made a mistake, never mind, we want to go in, we're going to the land of Israel, we trust God, He's going to deliver the land into our hands, we're going, we're ready to go. And Moshe said, it's too late. So much so that there was a group of people that said, we're so determined, and they said, we're going to go, we're going right now. And Moshe said, don't do it. You're going to be defeated. You're not going with God. Don't do it. And they went and they were killed. Okay. But here's an interesting thought. This is what the Alter Rebbe points out. He said, what happened? What happened between the moment when they said, we're not going to land, we don't want to go? Why did they say they don't want to go? Because they didn't believe, they didn't trust that God is actually going to have the power to be able to give them the ability to defeat the inhabitants of the land. There were very powerful nations there. There were 31 kingdoms in Canaan, in the land of Israel, in the future land of Israel. 31 kingdoms. They just defeated Pharaoh. Now they have 31 kingdoms to face. How are they going to be able to do it? And they were truly mighty and fortified and capable. So they were scared. They said, we can't do it. They didn't trust that God is going to be able to get them through it. And that's what he said, we don't want to go. What happened suddenly? They said, oh, we made a mistake, we're ready to go, we believe, we have faith. And they weren't just saying that. They actually meant it. But it was too late. But what changed in them? Forget about the fact that they weren't able to bring back Hashem's decree. Fine. But in their own self, they truly reached a point that said, now, we do believe we're going to be able to do it. What changed? It wasn't like there was a big miracle or something that Hashem showed His power. So you don't think I can do it? Let me show you what I can do. And God showed them some big supernatural miracle and said, look, I can do this. Nothing happened. There was no miracle. There was no special communication. It wasn't like suddenly they heard a lecture on faith and they were moved, they were inspired. Nothing happened. So why did they suddenly change 180 degrees? And the reason is because when they heard Hashem tell them those words, if you don't want to go in, you're not going in, you don't deserve to go in, it's not for you, the land, if this is your attitude, that shook them up. That shook them up. When they heard those words, they were so shocked by it that it cracked their shell. It cracked that shell that was concealing over the truth. The way they were speaking before was unbecoming to who they really were. But they didn't know that. They thought that what they felt was who they really are. But when there was this forceful criticism to them, given to them exactly as it is, it just shocked their system and it cracked their shell. Unfortunately, in their situation, it was too late to be able to repair the damage of how far they had gone with their inappropriateness. But their shell was cracked. That's the essence of what Alter Rebbe tells us in chapter 20. Number one, know that at the core of who you are, you do want it. You do love it. You do care about it. You are moved and inspired from it. Everything we said about the truth of the godly soul up until this point is 100% accurate in regard to every single Jew, no matter who. There is no such a thing as a Jew that doesn't believe. It's interesting, the Talmud says that the Jewish people are called Ma'aminim, B'nei Ma'aminim. Believers, the children of believers. Why does it have to say believers, the children of believers? Because the reason we believe is not because we understood on our own or we chose to believe. We believe because we're children of believers, meaning we're born with DNA to believe. We don't have a choice not to believe. And if we are not believing, it's because we've allowed for something external, outside of ourselves, to infiltrate in who we really are, and it's kind of confusing. It's like a fog. It's like a smoky fog that is blurring our truth of who we really are. But what do you do when you have that smoky fog? You gotta shock something to the spell, all this false, fake fluff of nonsense of the animal soul that's convincing you that you are really the animal soul where you're not. So how do we do that? So I will read for you the Alter Rebbe's words because I think they're very powerful. And he says the following. You should make your godly soul become enraged on your animal soul and scream at it with a loud voice. Literally, start screaming. Sometimes you gotta scream. And this is what you say. You look at that animal soul and you tell him, you evil, wicked, disgusting, despicable, horrible thing. All the evil names that our sages have called upon you. How long are you going to continue to conceal over God's infinite light that fills the entire world, was, is, and will be, and is everywhere in every place, from before creation to after creation, and you are standing in the way of me being able to connect with that. Get out of the way. That's what you tell the animal soul. You literally have to get angry. You have to get yourself to get upset. Now, how do you get upset? I'm living my life. Everything's fine. Why get upset? Things are good. We just went through 4 chapters of never get upset, always be optimistic. So life's great. Life's great. So the truth is that in the next 2 chapters is a kind of a continuation of this theme. And later on, I'll just reference now, the Alter Rebbe actually says, a good tip, a good trick is, do this if you're upset about something else anyways. It's a good time. Great. Yeah. Opportunity. Utilize the moment. Before we said, if you get upset, this is how you push it away. Here he says, sometimes you need to be upset. You're upset anyways about something silly. Redirect that upsetness on this, and this way you make him win out of it. But that's later on. But let's focus here. First point. How do I get upset? Life's great. Everything's good. I'm a good person. I do good things. I help people. I'm kind. I'm nice. I live my life the way I should. So just because I'm not moved to pray, just because I'm not inspired from Shabbos, and I don't care about other mitzvot or whatever it may be, so who cares? Big deal. So it's not for me. I'm Jewish, I like it, and I'll show up to the events, but it doesn't really do anything for me. I'm not so passionate about it. It's not so important because that's not who I am. That's the wrong conclusion, the Alter Rebbe said. This last detail, that's not who I am, is the wrong conclusion because it's false. It's simply not true. But how do I get myself to get upset? So here the Alter Rebbe says another very important point as well. Many of us, we're not really honest with ourselves. We think of ourselves in ways that aren't really truly honest about who we are. It's very important that a person should always really be truly honest in who they are, both in the positive and in the negative. But oftentimes, we kind of give ourselves a lot more leeway in who we really are than we really deserve. And one thing that, especially in a situation like that, it's not necessary to make yourself become sad and frustrated or disappointed with things you've done wrong. Like we said before, the main thing is keep going forward. But there comes a time, like in a situation like this, where the heart is clogged and nothing is moving the person, and I don't even care to get angry at my animal soul because I feel like I'm okay. So therefore, it's important to set a time to reflect privately, but honestly. And the Alter Rebbe actually doesn't say privately, but he implies that it's something you do internally. But I will share that I think if I understand ideas of Judaism that I've studied correctly, then I believe this is connected to this idea. The Rebbe spoke many times about the importance that a person has to have somebody that they check in with for accountability, spiritual accountability. We call that a Rav, a mentor. The Mishnah says, Asei lecha Rav. Make for yourself a rabbi, a mentor. It doesn't have to be a rabbi. It has to be somebody that you feel you look up to in some way, spiritually, and you're willing to be open and honest with them, and check in every once in a while. Maybe you check in once a month or once a week, whatever it may be, what works, not once a year. Like to be somewhat frequent. You check in, and you can talk openly about what's going on. This is what I've done. This is what I haven't. This is where I failed. This is where I succeeded. And they can push you along. They can motivate you. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be better than you. You have to be able to look up to them. They also need to have their own mentor. It's not like, oh, I'm perfect and I'm going to tell you how to do things. But the fact is that as humans, when we have to check in with somebody, there's a certain measure of accountability that pushes us to be more honest and more serious about the things that we're trying to accomplish. So I believe that it's possible. The Alter Rebbe doesn't mention this specific detail, but I believe it's connected to this. He speaks about take stock of your reality. And think about the things that you may have done or spoken of or thought of in the past that maybe weren't as they should be. He goes even further. He says, pay attention to your dreams. If they're foolish and meaningless, it's because your soul is engaged in meaningless ideas and thoughts during the day. So where is this all coming from? It's because you've allowed yourself to become seeped and drawn down into so much negativity that you don't even realize that you're embedded in negativity. It's like a person who becomes dirty and filthy. They don't even feel uncomfortable about it anymore. That's how bad it's become. And when a person realizes that suddenly will be an awakening to say, oh my goodness, where have I landed? What's going on with me? I'm living in the gutter. I didn't realize. I thought I'm in paradise. I thought I'm in heaven. I'm on top of the hill. And quite honestly, if I look at myself and really, truly, honestly reflect upon who I am and the things that I think about and the things that I speak and the things that I do or have done in the past, that or maybe I never really, truly remorsed or regretted them, means that I still have some kind of association with it. That is a really negative reflection of who I am as a person. And the point of it is not just to fall in despair and think badly of yourself. That's not the point. That's not what we're trying to get to. We have already established very clearly that thinking badly of yourself is never healthy. It's not appropriate. We're trying to bring ourselves to a point where we get so frustrated with the animal soul for positioning us where we are that I can get myself to the point that I'm enraged at the animal soul and I can get to start screaming at it. Because when I'm going to scream at the animal soul, that's going to crack its shell. That's going to part some of the shmutz, some of the dirt that's been covering over, and it's going to allow for the godly light that's always been there, never faded, never diminished, just was concealed, to start to shine out. And when that's going to shine out, then I will start to feel some of the things that I said, it's not me, so I can't feel it. It is you, but you don't know that you have that. So we got to make a little chaos. We got to make a little noise to be able to bring the attention to where it's supposed to be. And to be able to allow for the light of the godly soul that is at the core of you, who you are, to begin to shine through you. And then you will start to connect with it in a more meaningful, personal way. But to get to that point, you got to kind of break out a little bit. So that's the general concept. So I'll share with you another story. The fifth Rebbe of Chabad, the Rebbe Rashab, he was once sitting in his study as he normally would, and this custom by many Rebbes, and people would come for private meetings to speak privately with the Rebbe and seek guidance or blessing or different things that they need, and the Rebbe would help them, guide them. So the Rebbe Rashab had a brother who was actually older brother, who wasn't the Rebbe, but he was his brother, and the Rebbe's brother. He was an important figure as well. And once, in one of these evenings, when the Rebbe was accepting people for a private meeting, he sees a certain fellow sitting on the side, literally sobbing his head out, crying like a baby. And he goes to the fellow, sees a person crying. What's going on? He goes to ask, what's happening? Maybe I can help you. The Rebbe's brother goes over and he asks. So he says, I was just by the Rebbe, and I asked the Rebbe for a blessing for something that was really bothering me. And the Rebbe said, I can help you. The Rebbe said, I can help you. My world's falling apart. The Rebbe can help you. Who can help me? What do you mean the Rebbe? So the brother, his name was Razah. That's is an acronym for his actual name was Zalman Aaron, but they called him the Razah. So he said, the Razah said to the man, that's what the Rebbe said to you? He said, I can help you. He said, yeah, that's why I'm crying, falling apart. So the next opportunity, when the meeting ended with another person, and there was a little break, the Razah went to his brother, the Rebbe, and he says, how can you tell the guy you can't help him? You're the Rebbe, you have to help him. What do you mean you can't help him? He's crying. The guy's falling apart. How could you do that? So the Rebbe says, okay, tell him to come back. So he comes back in, and this time the Rebbe gives him advice, gives him a blessing, whatever it is. So the Razah asked him, what's this again? What's going on? So he says, I saw in the man that when he came in the first time, he was so, I don't use the word arrogant, but he was so full in his feeling of himself that he wasn't open to receive guidance. He wasn't open to receive the blessing that he needed. And the only thing I could do for him was to shatter his inflated. And once he was shattered, now he was open to be able to receive the blessing and the guidance. So when I told him I can't help you, that shattered him. When I heard that he was shattered, I said, okay, now he can come back in and now I can help him. The problem with the animal soul is that it inflates itself with such haughtiness, with such arrogance, that it makes us be delusioned and think that we're okay. To the point that it tells me, if I don't connect with godliness, if I'm not connecting with Torah, it's because it's not for me. That's how foolish and arrogant the animal soul becomes. But if it reaches that point, you can't reason with the animal soul to convince it, to influence it, to inspire it, to say, no, this is who you are. You've reached a point where normal reasoning, normal inspiration won't work. You have to put a needle in the balloon and deflate it. And when it deflates, then you have who to talk to. Then you have what to work with. And the Alter Rebbe says even further, the work will do itself because your godly soul will start to shine. You're going to feel it on your own. It's really going to start to affect you because that's who you are. But this inflatable, arrogant falseness of the animal soul is covering over, is concealing over that truth. And the only way to deflate is with an attack. An attack is painful. It's not something we normally do, and we shouldn't do except in emergency situations like this. But sometimes it's what you gotta do. Nothing else is gonna penetrate, is gonna break through this thick shell of dirt that's concealing over the truth of the godly soul. But another interesting perspective to this as well, and this is where it's important to keep reinforcing this notion, because since we are already kept repeating time and again how important it is to always be positive and optimistic and not allow for negativity to become our doctrine, to become our train of thought, it's important to realize that the goal here is not to start to look badly at ourselves and living with this shame. That's not the point. The point here is to be motivating, to be action. This is very action-led. It's not think badly of yourself so now you have a negative self-image for the rest of your life. God forbid. That's not the goal at all. It's temporary and very action-led. It's break the shell so you'll be moved to grow and to keep moving forward. And here's a story that I think captures this very well. In Russia, during the time of the Soviet regime, so one of the things that were very challenging for the Jewish people is that the Soviets, they forbade Jewish practice. They weren't allowed to study Torah, especially for young people. They weren't allowed to go to Jewish schools, etc. So there was a group of students, teenagers, who evaded the Russian law. And they didn't go to the secular schools. And they formed a little group and they would study Torah together. And they had a teacher. His name was Rabbi Chacha Fagin. The great chassid, he was their teacher. And they would hide. They would go into attics and basements and all sorts of places to study and hiding, and then that's how they lived. So one night, they were sitting together and they were doing what's called a farbrengen. Farbrengen is like an inspirational gathering where somebody shares uplifting ideas, inspiration, encourages. Sometimes we'll point out, hey, we're not doing this good enough, we got to do it better, etc. It's like a huddle, right? Like a spiritual huddle. So what they did was, they were sitting inside of this shul, having this farbrengen, and two of the students were set out to be, they took turns. Two students would stand outside, they were like the watchers, we call it. They were looking to see if the KGBs be coming, and if they see anything potentially coming, they would alert the guys inside, and they have time to run away before they're caught. So there they are, they're sitting, and the Rabbi Chacha Fagin is telling them about something that maybe their prayer isn't as it should be, and he's really admonishing them a little bit about it, to the point that they began to cry. They realized he's right, and they realized, like, oh, it's not the way it should be. So they started to cry, like they felt bad about it. And as this was happening, one of the scouters said, the KGB's coming. And as soon as they heard that, they sprung up and everybody started running different directions. There was not a moment of hesitation. But then, like a minute later, the other guy said it was false alarm. He thought it's not the KGB. So they sat back down, they regrouped, and everything was fine. As soon as they sit back down, the teacher, Rabbi Chacha Fagin, says to the students, you see, you care much more about physical things than spiritual things. He said, what do you mean? He said, all night long, I'm sitting and telling you how your prayer isn't how it should. And you don't care. So what do you mean you don't care? We cried. He said, it's true you cried. But what happened when you heard that potentially the KGB was coming? Nobody started crying. What'd you do? You got up and started to run. He said, why did you start running? He said, because there's a real danger. He said, so if physical is real, and spiritual should be at least equally real. So how come when you hear that spiritually things aren't good, you don't say, oh, I'm going to start doing better. You start crying. Nobody started crying when there was danger. You get up in action. You right away start doing. He said the point isn't to cry. The point is to be moved to do something. And that's the whole point here as well. Yes, sometimes we have to expose the negativity to be able to break the shell and get things going. But it's not the point to get you to just cry and become bitter and sad and negative about yourself. The point is to realize you're in danger. Get up and flee. Get up and move. Shake a leg. Make a difference. Change the course of how things are going. And that will happen sometimes when a person is suffering from a clogged heart. The way to be able to remedy that and to change that reality is by shocking the system. That makes a crack in the shell, in the cloggedness of the heart, that allows them for the godly light to begin to shine and to reconnect to the truth of who I really am.